Yes. In order to support the work of the Ecumenical Communion on the international level, we have expenses. And so we agreed upon in our Constitution some years ago that each parish community would be asked to give no more than 5% of their Sunday collections. So it's not including other sources of income, only the Sunday collections. So whatever that amount is, let's say you collect $1,000 a week in your Sunday collections, then I think $50 goes to the Ecumenical Catholic Communion to support that important work. We do not want to be a burden on the local communities, and we feel that this is a responsible level that we could agree upon to cover those kinds of expenses. There are no other expectations from in a financial way from the local communities other than when they want the bishop to visit them, they would at least buy him dinner and maybe his plane ticket. Is that helpful? Yeah. One of the questions that was asked of me last night was,
what's your name?
Oh, I didn't even tell you my name. Peter. My name is Peter. One of the things that, I'm a married priest and I have 5 children. So I love it when children come up to me. Good. I'm glad you agree with that.
This is a big family in church. Spirit.
Out of the mouths of babes. He said, the church is a big family. And that's right. Amen to that. Any other question? Oh, I was going to respond to a question. What happens when a community dies? What happens to their assets? And the ECC has no comment on that and has no claim over that. It's up to the local community to decide what would happen in the event that the community disappears. So if you want to give it to other communities in the ECC, if you want to give it to another charity, that's the decision of this local community. I think we have someone.
How do you ordain your priests? How many bishops are there, and how do you ordain your priests?
For several years, the only bishop in the Ecumenical Catholic Communion was myself, and that was overwhelming, especially as the communion began to grow from the 11 original communities to now more than 50 communities in different parts of the world. We do have a process by which the people in a region elect a bishop and call for a recognition as a diocese. And because once you elect a bishop, then you have a regional diocese. And that is what we mean by local church, the diocese. And so now we have 5 bishops in the ECC, to my great relief. I am what is called the presiding bishop. And the presiding bishop is elected by all of the delegates at the council or the synod, representing all of the communities, and serves for a 4-year term. A presiding bishop can serve up to 3 consecutive terms, and then he must retire. I have 2 more years to go, and I'm actually looking forward to my retirement. And right now we're in the process of electing our next presiding bishop. And as far as the question about ordination, we believe and feel that it is an important aspect of and an essential thing about Catholicism in what is called apostolic succession. So we practice the rite of ordination and celebrate the sacrament of ordination much like you would experience in the Roman Catholic Church. In our Constitution, there are some foundational documents that are mentioned, one being the New Testament, the Bible, the Nicene Creed, and other documents which we feel are foundational for us as Catholic Christians. But also we have a document that is foundational for us called the distinctives of the Ecumenical Catholic Communion. And we list 9 distinctive teachings of our communion that is different from the Roman Catholic Church. For example, marriage for priests. The affirmation and recognition and the full inclusion of gay and lesbian people in the life of the church. the ordination of women, those kinds of things. If it's not on the list of distinctives, then it is presumed that we share the theology of the Roman Catholic Church. So it's only on a few things that we're different. The presumption is we fall into this tradition that has been expressed through the Roman Catholic Church for over 1,000 years. Was that helpful? Good, thank you.
Other than those traditions, you saw the way Father Merrick had the Mass today. Are there any changes in the Mass itself and the prayer?
We have given quite a bit of freedom and latitude to the local faith community. And in the last 10 years, what we've realized is that a great deal of rich diversity has emerged, but at the same time, it has created problems, because if each community does its own thing, after a while, we can't even pray together. And what we have found is that it is preferable for us that we follow the tradition. We use the same Mass that you used this morning. And so I was quite comfortable. And the churches that follow a more traditional expression of the liturgy are the churches that are growing within the ECC. Those who have gone a little bit too extreme in some of their experimentation have found that it's not working. What Catholics are looking for is not necessarily a new liturgy. They're looking for a new attitude. And so we want to keep the richness of our liturgical tradition and be able to pray in common, and at the same time recognize that the Holy Spirit is doing a new thing in our day in terms of including people into the body of Christ. I know your liturgy is very traditional, and that tends to be the way St. Matthew's is as well. We like to use the censer and smells and bells. That's good for us.
I have, I think, two questions. The first one is, on your website, you refer to the Old Catholics, and you refer to the Declaration of Utrecht. Mm-hmm. And you have a parish in Poland that is not affiliated with the Old Catholic Church of Poland, but it's affiliated with the ECC. So what is the difference between the ECC and the Old Catholic churches of Europe?
Very little difference, because I myself, when I converted to Catholicism, did so in the context of an Old Catholic community in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And so I was ordained as an Old Catholic priest. This Old Catholic community was not in union with Utrecht, as many American Old Catholics are not. But that was my experience, and so we derive our apostolic succession from three sources: the Anglican Church, the Brazilian Apostolic Catholic Church, and the Old Catholic Church of Utrecht. So that is why we mentioned the Old Catholic Church. But the Ecumenical Catholic Communion is not a member of the Union of Utrecht.
If you derive your succession partially from the Anglican Church, why would you not be part of the Episcopal Church, which is the representative of the Old Catholics in the Union of Utrecht here?
That's the question that Utrecht asks us. That's the same question. And I think it's because part of the answer might be a cultural answer, because here in the United States, the Episcopal Church has a certain identity and ethos, the Book of Common Prayer, which is very much influenced by the Reformed theology of John Calvin. And it doesn't feel like, it feels like a different identity. The Episcopalians have their distinctive identity, and we can relate with much of it, but it's not us. We come from a Catholic experience, and so there's a different sense, I think. We could have theological agreements with the Episcopalians, but the way we experience the sacramental life, the devotional life, and the way we do church is much different. We just couldn't become British or Anglican.
My last question is, if St. as bylaws. And if our bylaws are different than your Constitution, and I know there are a couple of things that are different, does St. Stan's have to change their bylaws so that they match the Constitution of the ECC?
That is a good question, because what we have done is asked each community to write their own constitution and become individually incorporated civilly within the state in which they reside. And so we respect the local constitution, and hopefully those constitutions, the one of the ECC, the global international organization, and that of the local parish, conform to one another. At least it's a good match. We haven't had a situation where there was a real contradiction or dispute over that. But we do believe in the right of self-determination. So a community in the ECC, if they feel we're not really ECC, this is not working, we can part as friends. And we've had that happen once. And so we understood why that happened. So we do want to respect the integrity of the local parish community.
Are there seminaries where, if, God forbid, Father Mary left or something happened to him, where we could replace it by priest?
This is a very good question, because even in the ECC we have aging priests, and we have to think about what's going to happen as these priests will need to retire or go on and be replaced. Most of the priests, the vast majority of the priests within the ECC, have been formed and had their seminary experience in the Roman Catholic Church, like my friend Bob Blattner, who's sitting over here. Father Bob, you might know him. He's an ECC priest, but he received his formation and ordination through the Roman Catholic Church. So most of our priests are former Roman Catholic priests. However, we have ordained a number of women, and we have criteria for education. We want our clergy to be well-formed and as competent as any Roman Catholic priest would be in the Roman Catholic Church. We have high expectations for our priests. There are different ways that one can get their academic education, to get the Masters of Divinity through various Catholic universities or even in Protestant seminaries. But we would have to look at each individual case and make sure that that person who has that educational formation is not lacking in anything that would be essential to be able to function as a Catholic priest among us. So we've ordained a number of women among us who did not go to Roman Catholic seminary. Many of them have received a Master's of Divinity from Catholic institutions. And in fact, Kay Schmidt, who was here in St. Louis, one of our priests that was ordained a few years ago, she has a PhD in historical theology from your local St. Thomas Aquinas School of Theology. We are concerned about this issue of priestly formation. We would like to create our own seminary, and right now we're creating an online seminary called the House of Bonaventure to supplement what is needed in that educational formation. But we're only 10 years old. And these things take time.
You mentioned in your talk that
This is as far as it'll go now.
you mentioned in your talk that you had in the past had separated some of the people who had originally joined in a friendly manner, a cooperative manner, whatever. Could you mention what the chief reasons for somebody who joined your union in the first place and then later on departed from it?
In Seattle, Washington, there was a community, an intentional Eucharistic community that joined with the ECC, and their name was Spiritus Dei. They had no priest. They had lay-led Eucharistic celebrations. And we encouraged them to call forth one of their own, because these were very educated people. They had people who were qualified to be ordained, to ordain them and then conform to that tradition that is a part of Catholicism. They went into discernment, and then they decided that, well, the ECC is not a good fit for us, because we no longer feel the need to be dependent upon a ordained class to lead us in the celebration of the Eucharist. So we parted as friends, and we made no claim over them, but it became apparent to that community within their own life that they were in an organization in which they did not really fit. And that made sense, because it was awkward for us as we would gather at meetings, and we would discuss these issues of who is the rightful or valid or legitimate presider at Eucharistic celebrations. So in that way, the ECC was too traditional for this particular community. And that can happen. As time has gone on, we have become more and more common in the way we celebrate liturgy. Right now, there is no ECC community without a priest celebrating at the Eucharist.
One other question. Are the sacraments of the ECC, are they recognized in Rome?
There's rumors about from some ill-informed Romans that will say they're not valid. But historically, that is not the case. And that is why the ECC is so disturbing to Roman Catholic authorities, because they know that our sacraments are valid. They're valid by virtue of the sacrament of ordination and apostolic succession, which Rome acknowledges we possess. So the sacraments that we celebrate are as valid as they are in the Roman Catholic Church. The only difference is this. A canon lawyer will tell you, yes, the sacraments celebrated by an ECC community are valid, as they are here at St. Stanislaus. It's really Jesus who's showing up on the altar. We are really receiving the sacrament of his body and blood at communion. There is really no credible dispute from Rome about that. They recognize the validity of our sacraments, but a canon lawyer will tell you, but it's illicit. In other words, when you celebrate Mass here at St. Stanislaus, or I celebrate Mass at St. Matthew's, they would say, Jesus is illegally present. Yeah. But Jesus was known to be illegally present in people's homes and in people's lives. I love this. I love affectionate children. My youngest son is now 11, and he doesn't like to do this as much as he used to. I miss this.
How many of your parishes have an actual building? I know a lot worship in other churches, and I realize you're only 10 years old, but are there parishes that have their own church?
Yes, the majority of our worshiping communities rent space or borrow space from another organization. And there are certain Protestant denominations who have been quite generous with us in providing us a home. But there are a few communities that do own property. One of them is St. Matthew's, where I am at. We bought our own facility in 1998. And so we do have our own property. This is also true of the church in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and another one in Vista, California. So I think of all 50 of the plus communities that we have in the ECC, we have 3 that comes to mind that actually own their own property. And it's valuable to own property for the local community because it gives the faithful a sense you're not going away. You know, there's a sense of permanence to that. And Catholics like sacred space. That's a part of what our tradition. So I know that many of our communities aspire to own their property and have building funds going on and that sort of thing.
You said you were international. Where are you in the world?
Well, this has been quite a surprising experience because when the 11 communities gathered together in 2003, we were only thinking of the United States. We didn't realize that there was this same felt need throughout the world, and as the ECC became better known, we have been invited to come to other countries where ECC communities were formed and received into our communion. I just got back from my second mission to Europe, where I was in Poland. A young priest by the name of Father Tomas has established a faith community in Poznan, and now has 3 additional missions throughout Poland, one in Krakow, one in Warsaw, and one in a place called Silesia. And so the ECC is growing in Poland. The difference in Poland is, from here in the United States, is that the ECC Poland is a youth movement. Everybody's under the age of 30. Even the priest is 27 years old. He's quite competent and well educated, and you would be impressed with him, as I am. He's like a son to me. But when I was in Poland, I realized how religious the Polish people are and how devoted they are to the Roman Catholic Church. And the ECC young people in Poland have a great admiration and respect for the Roman Catholic Church. It is the church of their grandparents. It is the church of their parents. It is the church that brought liberty to Poland and helped Poland to be freed from Soviet domination and from an oppressive communist government. So the young people have a great respect for the Roman Catholic Church. They're not mad at the Roman Catholic Church. But it is just that the realities of life in the 21st century that causes these young people to feel like, yes, we love Holy Mother Church, the Roman Church, but we have certain needs that the church is not meeting. And it's usually around gender issues. The young people believe in the equality of male and female. They want to see female ordination. They believe in fully recognizing and affirming same-gender couples. So it's usually around, and they want to have a married priesthood, optional celibacy. So that is the reason we have a Polish presence in the ECC. And the Old Catholic Church of Poland, someone mentioned that earlier, the Old Catholic Church of Poland tends to be very conservative, and even though they may support it in theory, in practice it is not happening. So these young people, somehow the Old Catholic Church of Poland is not meeting their need, and that's why they reached out to the ECC. We have a community in Austria, in Vienna. We have a community in Lithuania. We have 2 communities in the Netherlands and 2 communities in Belgium. So there is a growing presence internationally. And now we have a relationship with a large community in Argentina who has their own bishop who wants to become part of the ECC. Bishop Braschi of the Argentinian Church knows the Pope personally because they're both from Buenos Aires. And Bishop Braschi, when he was a Roman Catholic priest, worked hard in social justice and fought and struggled against the fascist government of the 1970s and 80s. And he was imprisoned. And Pope Francis, when he was a bishop there, would go and visit Bishop Braschi, Father Braschi at that time. But Father Braschi felt that the institutional Roman Church in Argentina was collaborating with the fascist government. And so he felt a need to create an independent Catholic community outside of the Roman system, and that's how they came into existence. So we have a relationship with that, and we have a growing relationship with the communities in the Philippines that also are applying to affiliate with us. So truly, we're becoming a global phenomenon, even though we're quite small.
Roman Catholic priests are moved from time to time to different parishes. We don't want to lose those.
That was the same words that came from parishioners at St. Matthew's, where I'm at. And we value that. It's the parishioners who choose their priest. You select your own priest. And as long as you like your priest and he likes you, he can be here the rest of his life as far as we're concerned. So Bishops in the ECC do not assign and send priests out, but they aid a local community who has a need of a priest in helping them in a process of discernment to find their next priest. And a priest cannot be removed by the bishop. The only time a priest can be removed from his office if there is due cause and the lay council of the local community asks the bishop to work with them to remove a priest, maybe for some bad behavior or some level of incompetence.
On this happy note, we have to interrupt because the Polish Mass will start shortly. Bishop will be happy to talk to you in person as he has his coffee and donuts in the Polish Heritage Center. Just please remember to come back here at 11:55 or so.
I will be back at 11:55.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you.